Judge Marcus Bennett drove his black luxury sedan slowly through the quiet streets of his neighborhood. It was late Friday evening, and after a long week presiding over complex cases in the federal courthouse, he was looking forward to a peaceful weekend at home. The streetlights cast gentle shadows across the road as light rain tapped on his windshield. Marcus was 58 years old, with salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses that gave him a distinguished appearance. He had worked hard throughout his life, from his childhood in a working-class neighborhood to Harvard Law School, then as a public defender, and now as one of the most respected federal judges in the state. His colleagues described him as fair, thoughtful, and dedicated to upholding the law. As he turned onto Maple Avenue just 3 blocks from his home, red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. Marcus checked his speedometer. He had been driving under the limit. His turn signal was working properly, and his registration and insurance were up to date. Confused but calm, he pulled over to the side of the road. Through his mirror, Marcus could see Officer Derek Wilson approaching. The officer was young, probably in his early 30s, with a rigid posture and a hand resting near his holster. Marcus had been pulled over enough times in his life to recognize the unnecessary tension in the officer's body language. "License and registration," Officer Wilson demanded, shining his flashlight directly into Marcus's eyes instead of at his identification. "May I ask why I've been pulled over, officer?" Marcus asked politely, handing over his documents. Officer Wilson ignored the question. "Where are you coming from? This is a nice neighborhood. Do you live around here?" The implications were clear to Marcus. Despite his expensive car and tailored suit, he was being viewed with suspicion. He had experienced this before, but it never stopped being frustrating. "I'm coming from work," Marcus replied evenly. "And yes, I live 3 blocks down on Hillcrest Drive. May I ask again why I've been pulled over?" "Your vehicle matches the description of one involved in a reported disturbance," Officer Wilson said vaguely, examining Marcus's license. His eyebrows raised slightly when he read the profession. Federal judge. "A disturbance?" Marcus asked. "What kind of disturbance?" Officer Wilson didn't answer right away. Instead, he shined his flashlight around the interior of the car, as if searching for something suspicious. "Step out of the vehicle, please." Marcus felt a familiar knot forming in his stomach, a mixture of anger, disappointment, and caution. He knew his rights, but he also knew the potential dangers of this situation. "Officer, I've identified myself as a federal judge. I've done nothing wrong. I'd like to know the specific reason for this stop." The tension between them grew as raindrops fell harder on the car roof. Officer Wilson's face hardened. "Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle now." Marcus considered his options carefully. As a judge, he understood the law better than most, including the limits of police authority. But as a black man in America, he also understood the reality of these encounters. "Officer Wilson," Marcus said, reading the name badge, "I am respectfully declining to exit my vehicle without a clear legal reason. I have provided my identification confirming I am Judge Marcus Bennett of the Federal District Court. If you have specific concerns about my driving or my vehicle, please articulate them now." Officer Wilson shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable with being challenged. "Judge or not, when an officer gives you an instruction during a traffic stop, you need to comply." "That's not entirely accurate from a legal standpoint," Marcus replied calmly. "The law requires reasonable suspicion for a traffic stop and additional reasonable suspicion for asking someone to exit their vehicle. I've given you my identification and you verified who I am. Now, I'm asking once more, what specific violation am I being stopped for?" The rain continued to fall as a second patrol car pulled up behind Officer Wilson's. An older officer stepped out, Sergeant Patricia Rodriguez. She approached with a questioning look on her face. "Everything okay here, Wilson?" she asked. "Just conducting a routine stop, Sergeant," Officer Wilson replied, his voice tight. "The driver is being uncooperative." Marcus remained calm. "Good evening, Sergeant Rodriguez. I'm Judge Marcus Bennett. I've provided my identification but haven't been told why I was pulled over. I'm simply asking for the legal basis for this stop." Sergeant Rodriguez looked between Marcus and Officer Wilson, quickly assessing the situation. She had been on the force for 20 years and recognized the tension immediately. "Officer Wilson, can I speak with you for a moment?" she asked, gesturing toward their patrol cars. As the two officers talked in the rain several feet away from Marcus's car, he could see Officer Wilson gesturing animatedly while Sergeant Rodriguez maintained a calm, professional demeanor. Marcus couldn't hear their conversation, but he could guess its nature. After a few minutes, both officers returned to his window. "Judge Bennett, I apologize for the inconvenience," Sergeant Rodriguez said. "You're free to go. Have a good evening." "Officer." Wilson stood behind her, his face a mixture of embarrassment and defiance. Marcus knew this moment was important, not just for himself, but potentially for Officer Wilson and others the young officer might encounter in the future. "Thank you, Sergeant," Marcus said. "Officer Wilson, may I have your badge number, please?" By Sir War. Following Monday morning, Judge Marcus Bennett sat in his chambers staring at the complaint form on his desk. He had drafted a detailed account of Friday night's incident, including Officer Wilson's failure to provide a reason for the stop, the unnecessary escalation, and the clear implications of racial profiling. All he needed to do was sign it and submit it to the police department's Internal Affairs Division. Officer Wilson would likely face disciplinary action, possibly even suspension. Marcus removed his glasses and rubbed his tired eyes. The encounter had affected him more deeply than he wanted to admit. Throughout the weekend, his mind kept returning to that moment, the familiar feeling of being viewed as suspicious simply because of his skin color, despite his position and accomplishments. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come," he called. His law clerk, Jessica Chen, entered with a stack of files. "Good morning, Judge. These just came in for the Wilson case." "The Wilson case?" Marcus asked, suddenly alert. "Yes, the police misconduct case. Officer Derek Wilson is being sued for excessive force during an arrest last year." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Derek Wilson, young officer, about 30, works in the West Side Precinct?" Jessica nodded, surprised. "Yes, that's him. Do you know him?" Marcus looked down at the complaint form on his desk. This was more than coincidence. It was an opportunity. The officer who had profiled him was now appearing in his courtroom as a defendant in a police misconduct case. "Jessica, I need to recuse myself from this case immediately," Marcus said. "Please prepare the necessary paperwork." "May I ask why?" Jessica inquired. Marcus briefly explained Friday night's encounter. Jessica's eyes widened. "What are you going to do about the traffic stop incident?" she asked. Marcus looked at the complaint form again. Filing it would certainly create consequences for Officer Wilson. But as he considered the situation more deeply, he began to see another possibility, one that might lead to more meaningful change. "I'm not sure yet," Marcus replied thoughtfully. "But I think there might be a better way to address this than simply filing a complaint." After Jessica left, Marcus picked up the phone and called his old friend, Captain Lawrence Hayes, who headed the police department's Community Relations Division. "Lawrence, it's Marcus. I need a favor, and it's an unusual one." 2 weeks later, Officer Derek Wilson sat nervously in a conference room at the police department headquarters. He had been ordered to report here today without explanation. The door opened, and Captain Hayes entered, followed by Judge Marcus. Bennett, Officer Wilson's eyes widened in recognition and alarm. He stood up quickly, almost knocking over his chair. "Officer Wilson," Captain Hayes said, "I believe you've met Judge Bennett." "Yes, sir," Wilson replied stiffly. "Please, sit down," Marcus said, taking a seat across from him. "I'm not here to cause trouble for you." Wilson sat down cautiously, his posture defensive. "Then why are you here, Your Honor?" Marcus leaned forward, putting his elbows on the table. "I had two choices after our encounter. I could file a formal complaint, which would go into your record and potentially affect your career. Or I could try something different." Captain Hayes explained, "Judge Bennett has proposed a special program. Instead of disciplinary action, he's suggesting you participate in a 3-month community engagement initiative he's helping to develop." Wilson looked confused. "What kind of initiative?" It's called Understanding Justice, Marcus replied. It involves officers spending time in various parts of the justice system, sitting in on court cases, working with public defenders, meeting with formerly incarcerated individuals who are now productive citizens, and engaging with community, members in neighborhoods you patrol. Wilson's expression remained guarded. And if I refuse? Then the complaint gets filed, Captain Hayes said simply. But this isn't just about avoiding a mark on your record, Wilson. This is an opportunity to become a better officer. Marcus added, I've been a public defender, a prosecutor, and now a judge. I've seen our justice system from multiple angles. What I've learned is that understanding builds respect, and respect builds better relationships. That's what this program aims to create. Wilson was silent for a long moment, studying Judge Bennett's face. Why would you do this instead of filing the complaint? I disrespected you. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. You did. But I believe in justice that transforms, not just justice that punishes. The question is, do you want to be part of that transformation? After a long pause, Officer Wilson nodded slowly. Yes, Your Honor. I'll participate in the program. Over the next month, Officer Wilson's perspective began to shift. The Understanding Justice program immersed him in experiences that challenged his assumptions and expanded his understanding. In the first week, he sat in Judge Bennett's courtroom, watching how cases unfolded. He was struck by the judge's fairness and compassion, how he listened carefully to all sides before making decisions, how he treated everyone with dignity regardless of their circumstances. In the second week, Wilson worked alongside public defenders, meeting their clients and hearing their stories. Many were good people who had made mistakes or been caught in difficult situations. Some had mental health issues that had never been properly addressed. Others were simply poor and couldn't afford better representation. Most of these people aren't hardened criminals, Public Defender Sarah Johnson explained to him. They're human beings who need help more than punishment. During the third week, Wilson attended community meetings in neighborhoods he regularly patrolled. For the first time, he heard residents' perspectives on policing, their fears, frustrations, and hopes. A grandmother named Mrs. Washington particularly affected him when she described how she worried every time her teenage grandson left the house. I tell him to keep his hands visible. Don't run even if he's innocent. Call me immediately if he's stopped, she explained. No grandmother should have to fear for her grandson's life during a simple traffic stop. Wilson thought about his own mother and how she had never needed to give him such warnings. In the fourth week, Wilson met with formerly incarcerated individuals who had turned their lives around. One man, Jerome, had served 10 years for a drug offense and now ran a successful construction company that hired other returning citizens. The system sees us as statistics, Jerome told him. But we're people with dreams and potential. Sometimes, all we need is one person to see that potential. Throughout this time, Wilson met weekly with Judge Bennett to discuss his experiences. Their conversations were sometimes uncomfortable, but always enlightening. How did you feel when I pulled you over? Wilson asked during one meeting. Like I was suddenly invisible as a judge, as a citizen, as a human being, Marcus replied honestly. Like all you could see was the color of my skin. Wilson looked down at his hands. I think I've been trained to see threats instead of people in certain situations. I never thought of it as racism, but intent and impact are different things, Marcus said gently. You might not have intended to profile me, but the impact was the same. As the weeks passed, the relationship between the judge and the officer gradually transformed from antagonism to cautious respect. By the second month of the program, Officer Wilson's colleagues noticed changes in him. He spoke differently about the communities he patrolled, approached his work with more empathy, and even began challenging problematic behavior among his fellow officers. During a routine patrol with his partner, Officer Miller, they spotted a group of black teenagers hanging out in a park after sunset. Let's check them out, Miller suggested. Probably up to no good. Based on what? Wilson asked. They're just sitting there talking. Miller gave him a strange look. Since when do you question these things? Better safe than sorry. Actually, better respectful than sorry, Wilson replied. If they're not causing trouble, we should leave them alone. As they drove past, one of the teens waved hesitantly. Wilson nodded and waved back. "What's gotten into you lately?" Miller asked. "Ever since that program with Judge Bennett, you've been different." Wilson considered how to explain the transformation happening within him. "I'm just starting to see things differently. We have a lot of power as officers. We need to use it responsibly." The program was changing more than just Wilson. Judge Bennett had expanded it to include 12 officers, and word was spreading through the department. Some officers resisted, calling it soft or political, but others were intrigued by the changes they saw in their colleagues. Captain Hayes reported to Judge Bennett that complaints against participating officers had decreased by 40% in just 2 months. "You might be onto something here, Marcus," the captain said. "This could become a model for departments across the country." Meanwhile, Marcus was finding the program personally rewarding in unexpected ways. Teaching officers about the justice system from his perspective was healing some of his own cynicism about the possibility of change. One evening, as Marcus was leaving the courthouse, he saw Officer Wilson helping an elderly man whose car had broken down. Wilson hadn't noticed Marcus watching as he called a tow truck and then offered the man a ride home. The simple act of kindness, freely given when no one was watching, gave Marcus hope that real transformation was possible. 6 months later, Judge Marcus Bennett stood at a podium in the Police Academy auditorium. Before him sat the first graduating class of the now official Understanding Justice program, 30 officers who had completed the expanded curriculum that was now required training for all officers in the department. "When I was wrongfully pulled over that rainy night," Marcus told the audience, "I could have simply filed a complaint and moved on. Officer Wilson could have remained defensive and unchanged. We both could have reinforced the walls that too often divide us." In the front row, Officer Wilson, now Sergeant Wilson, recently promoted to Training Division, nodded in acknowledgement. "Instead," Marcus continued, "we chose a different path, not an easier one, but one that has led to real change. This program is about more than improving police-community relations. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and our shared responsibility to create a just society." The program had expanded beyond its original scope. Now it included community members who learned about the challenges of policing, judges who gained insight into officers' daily experiences, and public defenders who collaborated with police on diversion programs for low-level offenders. After the ceremony, Marcus and Derek stood together at the reception, watching officers, community members, and justice system professionals mingling and talking. "I never thanked you," Derek said, quietly. "For what?" Marcus asked. "For not filing that complaint, for seeing something in me worth saving." Marcus shook his head. "You didn't need saving, Derek. You needed perspective. We all do." A young black officer approached them hesitantly. "Excuse me, Judge Bennett, Sergeant Wilson, I just wanted to say that this program is why I decided to become an officer. I wanted to be part of this change." As the young officer walked away, Derek turned to Marcus. "Do you think this will last? That we're really making a difference?" Marcus looked around the room, at the diverse group of people engaged in respectful conversation, at the wall where the program's principles were displayed: dignity, respect, understanding, justice. "Change doesn't happen overnight," Marcus replied. "But yes, I believe we're moving in the right direction. One conversation, one person at a time." Outside the window, they could see the city stretching before them, its streets, neighborhoods, and people all connected in a complex web of relationships. The path forward would not be easy, but tonight, at least,